The Confederation of Zereth had made a terrible mistake. They simply did not understand what they had done when they attacked the human colony on New Eden. They had believed humans to be weak creatures, soft beings who relied on technology instead of natural strength. The Zyreth High Council had laughed when their scouts reported on humanity. These creatures had no claws, no armored skin, no venom. They seemed fragile and easy to break. So when the Zyreth warships descended upon New Eden, they expected an easy victory. They expected the humans to run and hide. They expected surrender within hours. What they got instead was something that would haunt their species for generations. The attack came on a peaceful morning. 12 million humans lived on New Eden. It was a farming world, a place of green fields and blue oceans. Children played in the streets. Farmers tended their crops. Scientists worked in their laboratories. Nobody expected death to rain from the sky. The Zyreth fleet consisted of 40 warships. They did not bother with warnings. They did not send messages demanding surrender. They simply opened fire. Plasma beams burned through the atmosphere. Cities turned to ash in seconds. Millions died before they even knew what was happening. Admiral Urath watched from his command ship with satisfaction. The humans were screaming on all communication channels. They begged for mercy. They asked why this was happening. They pleaded for their children. Urath felt nothing but contempt. Weak creatures always begged. That was their nature. But then something unexpected happened. The screaming stopped. The begging ended. A single message came through on all frequencies. It was calm, cold, completely without emotion. This is Governor Elena Santos of New Eden. You have attacked a protected human colony. You have killed our people without warning or reason. The Terran Empire has been notified. You have exactly 1 hour to cease all military action and surrender your fleet. This is your only warning. There will be no second chance. Admiral Urath laughed so hard that his tentacles shook. He ordered his communications officer to broadcast his response. Foolish human, your empire is far away. By the time they arrive, your world will be nothing but glass and ash. We do not negotiate with prey. We consume them. He cut the transmission and ordered his fleet to continue the bombardment. More cities burned. The death count climbed higher with every passing minute. Urath was enjoying himself immensely. This was what the Zyreth were born to do. Conquest, destruction, dominance. Exactly 58 minutes later, the sensors officer screamed, "Admiral, multiple contacts. They came from nowhere. They just appeared." Urath spun around to face the display screens. What he saw made his 3 hearts stop beating for a moment. The space around New Eden was suddenly filled with ships. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands. The Terran Imperial fleet had arrived, and it had brought everything. At the center of the formation sat a ship so massive that it made the Zyreth warships look like insects. The dreadnought was over 50 kilometers long. Its hull was covered with weapon systems that the Zyreth had never seen before. Around it floated carriers, battleships, cruisers, and destroyers in numbers that defied reason. How was this possible? The nearest human military base was 3 months away at maximum speed. How had they arrived in less than an hour? A new transmission came through. This time, the voice belonged to a man. His tone was ice-cold and absolutely terrifying in its calmness. "This is Grand Admiral Marcus Chun of the Terran Imperial Fleet. You were given one warning. You chose to ignore it. You continued to murder our people. You laughed at our mercy. That was your choice. Now you will face the consequences." Admiral Urath finally felt fear creeping into his mind. He tried to think of something to say, some way to salvage this situation. "We can negotiate. We can discuss terms. There is no need for more violence." The response came immediately. "We gave you a chance to negotiate. You called us prey. You said you do not negotiate with prey. We have decided to treat you the same way. Goodbye. The communication channel went dead. What happened next became known throughout the galaxy as the 60-second massacre. The Terran fleet opened fire with weapons that the Zyrith had never imagined possible. Beams of pure energy that cut through shields like they were paper. Missiles that seemed to think and hunt their targets. Projectiles moving at speeds that made them invisible. The 40 Zyrith warships did not stand a chance. They tried to fire back, but their weapons could not penetrate human shields. They tried to run, but human ships were faster. They tried to surrender, but no one was listening anymore. In exactly 60 seconds, the entire Zyrith attack fleet ceased to exist. Not a single ship survived. Not a single life pod was recovered. The humans did not take prisoners. They did not accept surrender. They simply erased the enemy from existence. Admiral Urath's last thought before his ship exploded was simple. He had made a terrible mistake. But the humans were not finished. 3 days later, the Terran Imperial fleet appeared above Zyrith Prime. The homeworld of the Confederation had a population of 8 billion. Their orbital defenses were the strongest in their sector. They had been building their military for 1,000 years. None of it mattered. Grand Admiral Chun broadcast a single message to the planet. People of Zyrith, your fleet attacked our colony without provocation. They murdered 12 million of our citizens. They laughed when we offered them mercy. They refused to negotiate. They called us prey. Now you will learn what happens when you hunt humanity. The High Council sent their fastest diplomats to the human flagship. They brought gifts. They brought treaties. They brought promises of eternal friendship. They were willing to give anything to stop what was coming. The diplomats were sent back in escape pods. Their message was simple. We offered negotiation once. Your people refused. There will be no second chance. The bombardment began at exactly noon. Human ships targeted every military installation on the planet, every weapons factory, every shipyard, every training facility, every government building where the war decision had been made. The precision was terrifying. Buildings next to military targets remained untouched while the targets themselves were reduced to craters. The Zyrith High Council was killed in the first 10 minutes. Every admiral, every general, every war leader, every politician who had voted for the attack on New Eden. The humans had done their research. They knew exactly who was responsible, and they eliminated them all. But they did not stop there. For the next 6 hours, the Terran fleet systematically destroyed every piece of military technology on Zyrith Prime. Ships that were under construction were melted. Weapons caches were detonated. Communication arrays were disabled. When the sun set on Zyrith Prime, the once mighty Confederation had been reduced to a pre-space age civilization. Yet the human fleet did not touch civilian areas. Hospitals remained standing. Schools were unharmed. Homes were untouched. The message was clear. The humans were not monsters. They did not punish the innocent, but they would absolutely destroy anyone who dared to hurt their people. Grand Admiral Chun broadcast one final message before his fleet departed. You have been given a lesson. Remember it. In 100 years, you may rebuild your fleet. You may restore your technology. When that day comes, you have a choice. You can try again. You can seek revenge, or you can choose peace. But know this. If you ever attack humanity again, we will return. And next time, we will not be so gentle. The fleet vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The Zyrith were left alone to pick up the pieces of their shattered civilization. News of the 60-second massacre spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Every species heard the story. Every empire learned the lesson. The humans were not prey. They were not weak. They were not soft. They were patient and forgiving, yes. They offered warnings. They gave chances. They preferred peace. But if you ignored their warnings, if you laughed at their mercy, if you refused to negotiate and chose violence instead, then you would face the full wrath of the Terran Empire. And there would be no second chances. The Galactic Council held an emergency meeting to discuss the humans. Many species were terrified. Some demanded action against this dangerous race. Others argued for immediate alliance. But one elderly diplomat from the Vashan Republic stood up and said something that silenced the entire chamber. For 3,000 years, the Zyrith terrorized this galaxy. They conquered 17 species. They enslaved billions. They attacked anyone they considered weak. The galaxy begged them to stop. We offered them everything. They laughed at us. They continued their conquest. Nobody could stop them. He paused and looked around the room. The humans stopped them in 60 seconds. And they did it while protecting innocent civilians. They did it while giving warnings first. They did it while offering negotiation before violence. The Zyrith had a chance to avoid this fate. They chose to ignore it. Perhaps we should not be asking how to stop the humans. Perhaps we should be asking how to become their friends. The chamber fell silent. The vote that followed was unanimous. The Galactic Council sent its best diplomats to Earth with a simple proposal: peace, friendship, alliance. The humans accepted. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Pirates disappeared. Tyrant empires fell. Slave markets closed. Not because the humans conquered everyone. Not because they forced their will upon others. But because everyone knew what would happen if they pushed too far. Everyone knew that the Terran Imperial fleet was watching. Everyone remembered what happened to the Zyrith. And everyone remembered the lesson. Humanity would always offer a chance for peace. They would always give warnings. They would always prefer negotiation. But they would only ask once. If you refused, if you continued to harm their people, if you laughed at their mercy, then you would face consequences that you could not imagine. The Zyrith eventually rebuilt. It took them 150 years. And when their new leaders looked at their first starship, they made a decision. They sent a message to Earth. Not a threat. Not a demand. A simple request for friendship. The humans welcomed them with open arms. Because that was the true nature of humanity. They did not hold grudges forever. They did not seek eternal vengeance. They were willing to forgive those who learned from their mistakes. They were willing to build bridges with former enemies. But they would never forget. And they would never allow the innocent to suffer again. The galaxy had learned to live in peace. Not because peace was forced upon them, but because they finally understood that some species should never be pushed too far. And humanity was at the very top of that list.